Hello, everyone. Good Monday to you all. Welcome to the Light Gate. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in the state of Louisiana on the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM. We're also coming to you from the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube. We have many listeners around the world. We have many pictures to show you tonight, and we promise those of you on radio only will be hearing really good descriptions. We have a major guest with us tonight. I am very happy to welcome him back, and I'm going to go ahead and get it going. Yay, Preston, let's go.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you all for joining us. This is episode 56 of The Light Gate. I am your host, Preston Dennett, and my lovely co-host is Dolly Saffron. We do have an amazing guest tonight, a returning guest. He's always super popular, one of my favorite researchers on the planet and off, and all new stuff tonight, so it's gonna be awesome. But before we bring our guest on, let me do my hellos, because you guys know how much I love to interact with you all in chat. It's because of you we do this show, and I'm just so grateful for all the love and support that you guys give us each and every week. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Hello, Brian. Thank you. And Aussie Jen and Michael Kennedy. I truly appreciate it. And W. Decker with your wonderful generosity. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. Real Badger, thank you for joining us. And Louise, all the way from New Jersey. Hello, my Earthling friends, and those who are not Earthlings, because I suspect there's a few of you out there. I really do. Hello, Chris. Teen. Always awesome to see you here. So thank you. Mountain Dan and Janice Connett. So looking forward to this evening. Oh, it's going to be awesome. And Chris, I always remind myself of Romper Room every time I do this. I see through my magic mirror, João Batista. Hello, my friends. Gratitude, Preston. Thank you so much. Gratitude to you too, João. Okay, who else do we have here? One Our Wedding from Columbia, South Carolina. Awesome. Mr. B and friends, Truth Seekers, and Catherine Four Feathers, thank you for joining us. And Fun Talks TV, all the way from Poland. Dzień dobry.
No, dzień dobry, jak się masz?
Okay, thank you, Dolly. Let's count on you. Namaste. Thank you. Your goodwill and generosity does not go unnoticed. Truly appreciated. Thank you so much. You guys just really humble me. Oh, Heidi Hansen. Good early morning, dear Dolly, all the way from Denmark. So yes, thank you so much for staying up so late to watch us. And thank you even more for your wonderful, absolutely amazing generosity, your goodwill. It just warms my heart, Heidi. So sending you all love and prayers. Thank you so much. Huge blessings to you. To Mitzi Oden from stormy Indiana. Dolly's flown over Indiana in her craft. That's one of her areas she covers.
Yep.
And I've interviewed quite a few people in Indiana. Lots of activity there, Mitzi. So I'm wondering if you've seen stuff. I bet you have. Z-Sun Dragon, hello. And
Z-Sun.
Catherine Jones and Ruth Kleiber and Hume Data. And Derek Mulligan, all the way from Dublin, Ireland. That is so awesome. I just love the way this show brings people from all over the world.
Yes.
Angie, Dog Lego Lover, all the way from Australia. And Jennifer and Susan Lawrence and Who Rue 2024. Another Australian.
Yeah.
More and more popular down under. Very cool. Blonde Psychonaut. Okay, I'll wrap this up, Dolly, I promise. Paranormal Leo and Olivia. Thank you. KMA. Aunt Kat Sadek from Little Rock. My heart belongs to New Orleans, though.
Uh,
In fact, we are broadcasting in New Orleans right now.
right.
Susan Lawrence is in Indiana too. Okay, let's just get started before I get in trouble. Because I can say hello to you guys forever. And let me see. Let me put up the new banner, which will tell you about our guest tonight, who is a returning guest. He's back by popular demand. He's certainly one of our most popular guests, and that, of course, is Michael Schratt. He's an amazing researcher, one of the few researchers active in this field who I truly admire. He does really good boots on the ground, deep, thorough research. And we're so happy to have him back for his third appearance, actually. I've read his bio before, but for those of you who haven't seen his previous shows, I will let you know that he's a private pilot, a military aerospace historian, a longtime UFO researcher, lecturer, draftsman, and an expert on classified black projects. Also, UFO crash retrievals, the government, UFO coverup, and more. He's the author of Dark Files, a pictorial history of lost, forgotten, and obscure UFO encounters. Check it out. It's an amazing illustrated book. He is a frequent guest on many radio shows and podcasts, and has, no surprise here, appeared on Coast to Coast, regularly speaks at conferences, including Contact in the Desert. His book, Dark Files, presents 61 fully illustrated UFO encounters from around the world, all obtained from boots-on-the-ground research by gaining access to university archives, multiple UFO research centers, and private collections. And all the cases presented do contain references so the reader can verify them for themselves. And every effort was taken to portray these cases accurately from eyewitness accounts, so preserving an important part of our global history. A lot of the stuff would be lost to posterity if not for the important work he is doing. So tonight, Michael will be presenting all new information. I'm super excited. He's got some really cool images to share, and he's an expert at this. So I will just bring him on and we can get this show started before I waste any more time doing introductions. Boom. There we go.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. It's always awesome to have you on.
Good to be with both of you.
Yeah, I'm excited because in the past few episodes, we covered UFO crash retrievals pretty thoroughly.
Sure, yes.
I know you've done explorations into all different kinds of areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited to see what you have for us tonight.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can present here. I'm going to share screen, window, and let's go to here and share. So are you able to see this?
Let me add it to the stage. And I'm
Okay.
sure
There we go. We got it.
Got it?
Yes.
All right. Now let me see if I can do from current slide, and that will get us here. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. And if I advance, does it work when I advance it? Is it staying on the same slide,
It's
or is it
on the
moving?
same one right now.
staying on the same slide.
Okay, so I'll just go back here, and I'll go at this level here, and we can start right here.
Okay.
I want to talk about Father Gill's sighting for one specific reason, because right around 1973 timeframe, Paul Hynek, the son of JAL and Hynek, was at a dinner engagement when Father Gill went to their home near Chicago in Evanston, Illinois. And they're talking about this case. Paul Hynek was literally sitting right next to Father Gill, and he's just talking about the case. He was not seeking any fame or fortune. He was laying out the whole thing. So in a nutshell, the timeline here to set things up. June 26, 1959, Papua New Guinea, Father Gill is alerted. Now, this happened 2 nights prior to, but this was the main night, June 26, 1959.
Okay, now real quick, I just want to let people know what we're seeing on the screen, because some people are just listening. We can see a picture.
Yeah,
of
what we're looking at is a full color rendering of the Father Gill sighting, which shows the entire, you could call it, local area with the primary eyewitness and at least 23 of the local people in the village here. So not only do you have Father Gill as the primary researcher here in this case, but it was also the 23 eyewitnesses that saw it too. And what they described seeing is approximately a 35-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that had an upper section that was 20 feet in diameter. So think of this as a two-tiered wedding cake. And we have a 45-degree bluish white light coming off at a 45-degree angle. Now, there were 4 humanoid-looking beings on the top tier of this wedding cake. 2 of them were near the edge of the craft. The other 2 were near the center, and they were slightly obscured. And it was the belief of Father Gill that they were either working on or fixing some type of mechanical machinery on the top here. I'm going to move to the next slide here, and hopefully this advances here. Did it advance okay?
Yep.
It went to the next one. Okay, so this is the blow up here. And, bottom line, this was seen by at least 25 eyewitnesses. And when Paul Hynek described this case to me, it was so believable, so convincing. I felt, yes, we have a real case here, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's the credibility of the eyewitnesses that really gauge the authenticity of many of these cases. We weren't there, but the level of credibility of Father Gill and the other witnesses really added to this case. Now, just to show people where this actually took place, I'm moving to the next slide here. Here is the map of Papua New Guinea. And if you look on the bottom right of this map, this shows you the area of where this actually took place. I'm going to move to the next slide, and you can see this Boane in Papua New Guinea. That's where this actually took place. So it was a hotbed of activity. This was night 3 of the primary night where this actually took place. So it wasn't just one night, but it occurred over about a 3-day period here.
Good enough. Kind of that's a kind of an interesting name for a place. Good enough.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Now let's go to the sketches here. Here's just kind of a cross section of sketches, and this is what these people were reporting. So not just Father Gill, but you've got the 4 people on top. You've got the 2-tiered wedding cake. You've got the light coming off at a 45-degree angle, and then you have these prongs or protrusions sticking down, which I do not believe are landing gear legs, because I've got at least 12 other cases within my historical files where UFO witnesses are seeing prongs, protrusions, projections, and then at the end of these prongs, there's a ball at the end. That pops up many times. I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, 1964, Wycombe, Pennsylvania. The witness saw what looked like a water heater, literally a water heater with curved ends at each end. There were rivets wrapped around the outer circumference, and then she said there were 4 prongs sticking up. Actually, there were 6 prongs sticking up, and at the end of the prongs, there was a ball at the end of them. If we fast forward to the Nimitz FA-18 Super Hornet case from 2004, the high-definition resolution footage also has these prongs on the quote-unquote Tic-Tac UAP. So you can see the technology predates 2004 by literally decades.
Right.
It's been around for a long time. And so we're seeing similar prongs on this case. This is another rendering here of what this thing looks like. And you can see people in the local village. They're all looking at this. You've got the 4 people on top. So multiple different witnesses drew almost identical sketches, and they were all sequestered and quarantined from each other so that they could get the real story. So bottom line is, that's the Father Gill case. Now let's move on to the next one. This is
I got a question. Okay.
Yes.
The blue light, was it coming from another craft?
No, it was coming from the same craft.
Okay, so it was shooting out, and they didn't
shooting out at a 45-degree angle. Yes.
Okay, that they think that's what it was doing. Okay. Was there any other craft around it eventually? Did they see anything like that?
That's what and it was a light white / blue light.
Okay.
I don't think there were other craft as far as I know. But what fascinates me about this case is they actually did interact. I mean, weren't they waving and they were waving back?
That's the point of it. See, Father Gill, first, he did wave at the beings on top, and they waved back. And then he also had a lantern, and he moved the lantern, and there was interaction there. So this is a CE1. It's a CE3. Physical effects, I don't know if we could say physical effects, but it's a CE1 and a CE3, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing that's so unusual about it is that they're climbing around on top of the craft itself in open air.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Michael. Has anybody ever, has it occurred to any of them, y'all, that they're not fully powered when they're that low in the atmosphere? That they're running.
Very good. I like that. I like it. You're going in the right direction.
They're on batteries at that point.
There is something in this field called the falling leaf phenomenon.
Correct.
Where you have these craft that are partially energized in a localized gravity field, like near the Earth, where they have this wobbling.
Right. It's the battery effect. Yeah. Yes. It's the effect of the type of energy that they're using. When they're low energy, the reason that they had the top open was because they had turned down all the system to allow it to gather electricity from the top of the water or wherever they were at. They obviously thought that they had an energy source. They can pull free energy right out of the air. And those things that are hanging down are what gathers the electricity. The balls are the dead giveaway, okay? It's like a Tesla coil upside down, and it can gather energy instead of send it. The Tesla coils that Tesla built, they have to come in through the top. And so they reverse it upside down toward the Earth. And ETs will often open up a wall, a window, or the top and say hi to people. It happened to me. We had a discussion about this in 2008, where two of the Greys, the ET Grey AI, opened the wall window where I was sitting, and were hanging over the edge, flicking their feet back and forth because they were trying to show that they can do that in atmosphere. Okay.
In open air. So
in open air. Yeah. He was just hanging over the side. And so this is cool. That was a deliberate act on their part. They wanted them to be seen. Okay. They knew they were gathering energy. You can gather energy anywhere near water, anywhere. But for them to go over people like that, that's exactly what.
And these were human looking from what
absolutely human looking. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Sure enough. Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right, so JL 1628, this is November 17th, 1986. Paris to Tokyo over Alaska. Now, they were shipping wine, of all things. They're at a pretty good altitude. Now, the thing about this case is it's broken down into two segments. And when you hear about this case, like in the news or on History Channel, they always talk about part B of the case. They never talk about part A. That's why I want to cover both parts in this case. So bottom line is Kenji Teruyuchi, who's the pilot, he's the left seater. And this is the co-pilot saw it too. 2 what look like Campbell soup cans chopped down to 50%. These are 150 feet in diameter. There are 2 of them. So what we're looking at here on this illustration is an in-cockpit view looking out the pilot in command, the perspective from inside the cockpit through the 747 window. And when these quote unquote Campbell soup cans came approaching toward the 747, they had a black central section, and then on either side of that there were amber colored lights that were alternately flashing so close to the 747. He said within the reference works that they could feel the heat on their faces. So it's a CE1 and it's a CE2 right off the bat. Now these things had rapid maneuvers. They could make 90-degree turns. There was a point where they were trailing the 747 for at least 20 minutes. It was caught on ground-based radar, military radar, onboard TCAS. So we have independent radar and visual for this particular case. It really doesn't get much better than that. The pilot actually made a request to ATC and said, you know what? We've got these UFOs following us. We would like to do a 360-degree turn to see if we can shake these things, and they stayed locked off the wing. So this is something that happened in this case. Now, what evidence do we have? Let's move on here. This is Miami Herald, Sunday, January 4th, 1987. This case went all around the world. This was a huge event. FAA reviewing data from night. Japanese pilots report UFOs. I'm going to move on to the next one here. Lincoln Journal, Star, December 30th, 1986. UFO following Japanese cargo jet tracked on radar. Crewmen saw it. So here again, we've got independent confirmation from 3 different sources. Here is his original sketch. And so you can see our Campbell soup cans here. Again, we have these amber lights and then what looked like black electrical tape going down the center. Now, talking about the second part of this craft, once these two soup cans flew away, off from the port aft fuselage, would be the left aft fuselage of the 747, comes what can only be described as an absolutely massive walnut-shaped UFO that was minimum, he's got it on here, 2 times the size of an aircraft carrier. That's how large this thing was. I'm going to move it to the next slide here. This is the Herald, December 30th, 1986. Controller confirms spotting. So again, the newspaper clipping upon newspaper clipping, radar tapes. We've got John Callahan, who was the original May 9th, 2001 Disclosure Project witness. He confirmed it. He actually saved a lot of the original data. So here we have Captain Kenji Teruyuchi describing to the media what he saw, what he experienced. And then if we go to the next slide here, what you're looking at is a full color rendering, the best we could do, of this massive craft over Yukon territory, which there have been multiple sightings there, coming up on the after end of the 747.
Yeah, you know what's amazing about this case is this is the very case that brought me into the field.
Are you serious?
This is the one. I was
Really?
in front of the TV November 17 when it came on the news. I thought this pilot is crazy. He's seeing a reflection off the ice cap. That was my reasoning.
No,
there is no ice cap below there. But yeah, this is what brought me into the field. I found out that my family had been seeing UFOs, and yeah, thanks to that pilot, Teruyuchi.
That's right.
Stepping forward. Now, he was grounded, wasn't he?
He was grounded, and then Richard Haynes had to go to bat for him, and he got his wings reinstated.
Awesome.
Because of the body of evidence that Richard Haynes was able to show that it wasn't an isolated incident. We had other commercial pilots that saw different vehicles in conjunction with the military pilots. So when you put that together, now you've got yourself a real case, because these people were trusted with the national security of the United States, and they're seeing these things. Amazing. These are credible first-hand witnesses. And that impressed upon the airlines to go ahead and reinstate them.
It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's
okay. We're going to move on to the next case here.
Absolutely undeniable.
December 26, 1972. This is Venezuela. Now, this case was buried in the QFOS archives for decades. I've never seen it published anywhere. It wasn't in IUR, International UFO Reporter, over at QFOS, which used to be 2457 West Peterson Avenue, downtown Chicago. Now has put into the jurisdiction of the David Marler collection. So now all those QFOS files are under jurisdiction of David Marler with the National UFO Record Center. So bottom line is, we've got 3 eyewitnesses: the father, the mother, and the daughter. They're on the top floor of their 14th floor apartment complex. They're looking off to the right, and they're expecting to see a commercial airliner that comes by every night at the same time. So they know what they're looking for. They're looking off to the right. Now, this time, they didn't see that. What they saw was this orange-colored flaming type light approaching them. As it got closer, they could see that this was no aircraft. So the father, who is the primary eyewitness, told his daughter to go next door to the other room across the hallway and get a pair of binoculars and borrow them. These are 6x30 binoculars. So she brought them up to her father. He looked through, and as this thing passed by at close range, he zoomed in on this thing and got a real good detailed look at this thing. This was an elliptical shaped craft, 50 feet in length. It had a series of double twin cast iron exhaust ports wrapped around the final 1/3 of the craft, the back, and then the final third on the right-hand side. There was twin half hemispherical domes with a continuous spark gap mechanism that was going back and forth. That was going on. He got a real good look at this thing. Now I'm going to go through some of the other slides here. Now what you're looking at is a bottom view. Now, as this thing passed by, he said that the flames that came out of this cast iron exhaust ports that were wrapped around almost this entire craft, these were not campfire flames. They look like an atomic discharge. They look like lasagna noodles. So we're talking about a different type of a propulsion system here, probably something like a plasma discharge. That's the impression that he got. That's mentioned in this report. This guy did a beautiful job. Drawing, sketch, illustration, 5-page report discussing this whole case. So let's move to the next one. Now we're looking at the bottom.
So do you think that this is this the same craft you're talking about right now?
This is the same craft, but now we're looking at the bottom of it now.
Okay.
And
I'll hold my questions.
Ball and then cut it in half. So you've got these two half hemispherical spheres that are opposing each other. And then there's like a probe and there's a continuous spark gap mechanism going on between these as this thing is flying by. So I'm going to go to the next one, and I've done a detailed, basically blow up of these, call them lasagna noodle flames. Now, bottom line, at the end of page 5 of his multi-page report, he said that much more description could be given, but would serve little purpose because he's already talked about everything. But he said basically that this craft, there were 2 of them seen, were not too far beyond any one of our aircraft plants could produce. In other words, he felt that this was one of ours.
Yep, exactly. Did it make a noise?
Virtually silent as it flew by. Virtually silent.
So if it's ours, what is it doing flying right over the city like this?
Well, they're bold now. They're brazen. And they do it because they can. Yep. These things can be used as psychological warfare operations. And in many cases, when people spot these craft, they paint these with the UFO brush as a cover to hide their own deep black programs. Yep. They're known to do this. Absolutely. They are absolutely known to do this. Now, let's move on to the next one. I want to mention on this, though, in this particular case, and what you're looking at here is a map of the Canary Islands. This is June 22nd, 1976. We have it on very good authority, so you can take this to the bank. This case went all the way to the top. Hillary Clinton knows about this case. Former President Bill Clinton knows about this case. How do we know this? How do we know this? Because of this document right here. Unidentified flying objects briefing document, the best available evidence. Okay. Now I'll go to the next page. Look at the case histories. This is the introduction. This is all table of contents. You've got Foo Fighters, 1944 to 1945. You got the 46 Ghost rockets, radar visual case over England. You keep on going down, and then you look over here, Canary Island cases. So it's mentioned here within this Canary Island. So this is 1976, page 69. So Bill Clinton was hand-delivered a copy of this document. He knows about this case. So let's break this down. Now, what you're looking at now is a full-color rendering by my good friend Tom Bogan. Want to give him credit. This is from the deck of the Spanish naval ship Atrevida, 3 nautical miles off the coast of Punta Lentilla, and this is in the Canary Islands. And what they saw was a bright light. So it doesn't seem very interesting, but as we get a little bit more into this case, things start heating up. So if I go to the next slide, what you see now is the town of Guay, Gran Canary Islands. So it moved from east to west, 85 miles to the west. It covered going 1,900 miles an hour and made no sonic boom. And this is all back in 76 time frame. Yeah. So what did people see? As this thing was hovering over the town, what they reported was a bubble, transparent glass soap bubble. Inside the soap bubble was a pedestal. Standing on the pedestal were these 9 to 12 foot tall humanoid-looking beings wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. They had helmets on top, and they were activating levers. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. In the central part of the column was you'd call it about a 24-inch diameter central column that rose up that had blue smoke that was coming off the top of this thing. Now, I want to mention, too, that in a lot of these UFO cases, you have to go overseas to get the best information. So if you go to these foreign publications, now you can see an illustration of what this craft looks like. You've got this soap bubble, clear, transparent, seen by multiple eyewitnesses with this platform. You've got these 3 pedestals, and then you've got these levers that these beings are operating. So let's go to the full color rendering, and now you can see this case coming into view. Absolutely bizarre, but confirmed by 11 witnesses.
Yeah, one of them was a doctor. I remember this case.
Yeah, it's a good case.
He saw it very close up. And I believe
Yes.
he described as one of these humanoids as being extraordinarily tall.
They were very tall. They were very tall, and they were activating levers. I've got at least one other case where a nurse on January 7th, 1970 in Canada saw a dish-shaped craft with a man operating a lever there too. So it's not completely unknown. So let's continue on to the next one. Now, what you're looking at now, for people who are listening and following along, this is a full color rendering, Chicago O'Hare, April, May 2001. Now, I interviewed the primary eyewitness. He was with 5 others. Now, it had rained the night before. They're at the Ozark hangar at Chicago O'Hare Airport. So the tarmac was wet. All of a sudden, this 50-foot diameter dish-shaped craft, in this illustration, it looks more like a cigar-shaped craft, but it was a dish-shaped craft, comes hovering over the Ozark hangar. They all saw it. It had 12 lighted slots on each side of the outer circumference section. There was a bubble transparent canopy up front. There was what looked like a circular opening on top. And then he said the most bizarre feature on this craft were these octopus tentacles were moving. They were alive at the back end of this thing on top. At the terminating end of each of these tentacles were balls or spheres. So this is like the 12th time now that I've heard of these spheres, electrical discharge spheres, that are associated with these craft. Now, here is his original sketch that he had drawn. And you can see it's got these prongs and protrusions sticking off the top, which are the octopus tentacles. It's got prongs at the bottom with spheres. You can see the elliptical or slot-shaped light section, and then you've got the hangar that this thing is just flying right by. Now, as this thing flew by, approximately 4 minutes as it passed by an active runway, there was a low-frequency rumbling noise at the end of the runway, and a 747 took off. It was almost a mid-air collision. So whatever this thing was, it was under intelligent control, it was intentional, and this thing knew about what was coming down the runway. I mean, it was trying to avoid what was coming.
Yeah. It was picking somebody up, by the way.
Yeah, something like that. Now, I visited this case years later, and I reconnected with the witness, and we did a 3-view drawing of what you see here. So, you know, the primary feature are these octopus tentacles that show up in multiple cases here.
Now, is this the one that was cited by several of the baggage handlers?
No, that's a 2007 case. Yes.
Okay. Another case over Chicago O'Hare. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so O'Hare seems to be having some interesting sightings.
Yeah. There's a bunch of cases over airports for whatever reason.
That's right. That's right. Okay, next one. Dana Point, California. This is December 1976. And what you're looking at here is one of my very first original SolidWorks rendering. And this was seen by the primary witness. She was driving her car. Her 2 children were in the front of the vehicle. And looking out the windshield, they saw this dish-shaped craft. It looked like a fat Frisbee. There was a red blinking light on top. And then she said, and this is in the report, there were literally thousands of multicolored, blinking, flashing computer lights all around the outer circumference of this craft. I'm going to go to the next slide here. What you're looking at is the newspaper article that talks about this. And this is the drawing of the 2 eyewitnesses looking out the windshield. And this is what they reported. I've got another case from Detroit. Almost an identical craft was seen. And what's interesting on that case, and I think we've got an illustration of that, this thing tipped up 90 degrees and rolled away like a wagon wheel as it departed. So bottom line is it's not isolated. This whole concept of these fat Frisbee UFOs are somewhat consistent. They have common denominators. They're blinking red lights on top. I'm going to go to the next one, and you can see now you've got my SolidWorks AutoCAD drawing with literally thousands of these lights. So we took everything that we got from the primary eyewitness in the case. I went ahead and gave this to my good friend Tom Bogan, and he came up with this illustration. Now, what you're looking at now is the exact make and model vehicle of the car they were driving. So this is what it looked like as this thing was going right in front of their windshield. This is very accurate to the primary eyewitness.
That was a deliberate array on their part. They're out there. The skin of these things are like cuttlefish. They have light technology in them, and they can array as anything. They can disappear in your face and look like the background, and you never see them. They're still there. And if they want to be seen, they will be. And some people, they will actually do light shows for, literally. And there's some about the people in that vehicle that they liked. Just saying. Okay.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go to the next slide. As this departed, what we're looking at now is the final portion of this case where this thing tipped up 90 degrees and rolled away like a wagon wheel. I've got 2 other cases of this similar phenomenon as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we see, I think, in genuine cases, because they'll lift up, turn sideways, and then they go.
Yes.
Yep.
That's
and they
correct.
can roll when they do it. They'll if they roll, I'm telling you, they really liked whoever the heck was in that car. Okay. I would never have done that for anybody unless we knew who they were and we were getting their attention for a very specific reason and left an impression on them big time. Yeah. They've had other experiences. I'll bet money on it.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow up on that next. So many cases we just hear the first sighting, we don't get to hear about others. That's a fascinating case. It's so unusual.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. This is January 1st, 1970, Finland. Bottom line is we've got 2 skiers. They're going down the ski hill. They notice a cloud following them. They kind of stop at this open area where there's trees surrounding kind of an open area. And there's this bright flash. And when the flash dissipates, what they see is a 10-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that has a low-rise dome on top. There are 2 inverted half-spherical domes on the bottom. And then they said, and here's where it gets weird, what could only be described as a garden gnome. He was 3.5 to 4 feet tall. He was wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit that was green in color. He had a cone-shaped hat on top. He was wearing mittens. And then they said that he had what looked like a camera that was attached to his chest, and he was moving from one skier to the next like he was taking photographs. You can't make this up. This is like one of these crazy cases. Now, here's the drawing that came from Clarksburg, West Virginia, the Gray Barker collection, which has a tremendous amount of material. So you can see here. Now, it's a CE1. It's a CE2. It has physical effects, and it's a CE3. I'm going to go to the next one now. You can see the light coming down. You can see our primary eyewitnesses. They're shocked. They're horrified. They did not expect to see what they saw because this is absolutely outside of what they were expecting to do that day. I'm going to go to the next, and this is from foreign publications. This is not U.S. publications. Here is what this strange being, he kind of had a wrinkled face. He had a crooked nose. You can see this device that he's wearing on his chest with this camera device. And when this case kind of concluded, there was another bright flash, and the being disappeared, the craft disappeared, and one of the witnesses started getting sick. He had to be helped by his partner about another 2 miles down off to the lodge again. So it was absolutely a CE2 case.
You know what's also interesting about that case to me is the 3 dome structures on the bottom.
Correct.
That turns up in a lot of that was in the George Adamski.
That's
craft,
right.
Which
That's
I
right.
wonder about because he's been so, kind of panned or debunked or whatever you want to call it. But on the other hand, his first encounter had 4 witnesses who never backtracked, said this was a true encounter at Desert Center. But his story did get more and more wild. I wonder about the authenticity of his case because you see that craft turning up in other cases, and that one looks pretty similar.
That's what I find very interesting when we do this research. And Preston, you're so good at this yourself, is that when you start investigating these historical legacy cases and you start seeing the common denominators, this thread that is woven through the tapestry of these cases, separated by space and time, yet we have different eyewitnesses describing the same understructure of these vehicles, like tubes, pipes, and cylinders, a low frequency electrical humming noise like a electrical transformer or a sewing machine, multicolored flashing lights. And when you put these cases together, now we have a body of evidence to really move forward.
Yeah. Well, it literally proves the case that they're not at full power when they're in that close to the Earth. In other words, they are on batteries and they have different apparatus for that, but they're all the same technology, okay? It's just different
But
patterns.
what about this humanoid? I mean, with a big
It's
nose.
a little blue being, Preston. If it's cold outside, they don't look blue. They turn pure white. And if
All
he's
right.
gnome looking, that would be one of them. It's a type of gray is what it is. It's the little grays that I talk about. Your sister-in-law saw one.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I do hear these. I mean, there's such a wide variety of humanoids, but
Yeah.
They start to follow these really distinct patterns.
Yeah.
November 19th in England, primary eyewitness is going to work in the morning. So he was doing his morning commute, probably around 7 in the morning. And we've got the newspaper clipping here. So he does this right-hand turn near a bridge area, and he looks up and he sees a 60-foot, you could call it long, elliptical shaped craft with a notch cut out at the back. There were 2 beaming spotlights heading forward. And then he said, on the bottom of the craft, there were tubes, pipes, and cylinders. A lot of these witnesses describe these craft as looking like the inside of a Midas muffler shop with all these mufflers and quieters and silencers and pipes. And it just looks like an array of pipes on the bottom. That's what he described this thing. I'm going to move to the next one, which is the newspaper clipping. This is Burton Daily Mail, January 17th, 1995, just to show people where I'm getting this information. I'm not just making this up. But if I go to the next slide here, now you see the bottom of this thing coming into detail. Now, I've got at least 10 other cases that have similar features on the bottom. For instance, these pipes and these tubes, there has absolutely got to be a reason for this. This cannot be haphazard. This cannot be by accident. There's a reason for every component on these UFOs.
That looks like a
I want to stop you, and I want to stop you. Before the show,
Yes.
I told you that Tolada looked like this, did I not? They just didn't see the grappling hooks. They almost got him down pat, but that is a Tolada vehicle, like Tolada. That's exactly. And what you're seeing on the bottom is a deliberate array on the entity that's piloting that to show you something. And sometimes they're schematics of things. Sometimes they're showing it just for fun, whatever. But that is a deliberate act on the. Remember, I told you they can show themselves as anything. They can put any array, any pattern. They can do anything. And after the show, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you my photos of Tolada.
Okay.
So you understand what I'm saying. That's to throw you off what they actually look like. And that is one of the ways that they do it. But if you look in the front where the 2 headlights are, and the fact that he's tailed in the back like that, and and he's cut in, it's the boomerang shape. He was not showing the full fact that he's a boomerang and that he didn't show his grappling hooks on the side. That's a Tolada type craft. They are huge.
Well, Botanical Brother raises a good point, because usually when someone sees a UFO that's genuine, it's very smooth skinned and there's no protrusions. But with these pipes and stuff, wouldn't that point to it being a reverse
No,
engineer?
absolutely not. That's why Tolada does it. He's like messing with everybody. I've asked him 1,000 times. Because every time we come down, he does something different. And at first it was driving me crazy. Why can't we just be what we are? No, that's not how this works. And I'm like, okay, fine. They confuse the alt governments. They drive them crazy with this stuff. They don't understand how they do it. They've tried to back engineer that technology. Where do you think light cable networks came from and underground telecommunications with light? They got a hold of the skin of this stuff and they realized that they're arrayed. Okay. And they can't quite fully understand how to get a computer to charge up and do anything with it, like a light show, like a laser light show. But that's what they're doing. They're messing with you. So they show differently. And it's to show the fact underneath, and you will see the protrusions when his batteries are down. When his batteries are down. And so they array it so that you're not quite sure what you're looking at. And that's what he was doing. Literally, to keep you off your feet about it. So, I mean, you don't give your technology away for free ever. And ET's never going to do that. Everybody's back engineering as much as they can, but they will never ever get a full handle on what it is, and how it operates. And
Wow.
that's Talata. And Michael, I will show you pictures of Talata, okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about.
Love the passion. I love the passion. That's great.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is England, 1994. Primary eyewitness was going on his morning commute. He was on a motorcycle. All of a sudden, the motorcycle stopped dead. And then the next thing he knew, he was bathed in a bright light. He looks up and he sees a square. There's white light shining down on him. And then there are tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the square, just like in the case we looked at. Now, as the square moved off to the side, now he could get a good look at what the configuration really was. What he was actually looking at was the bottom or base of a pyramid.
Yeah,
so
that's
this is
ours.
a flying pyramid that had tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom. I'm going to move to the next slide. And what you're looking at now is the Burton Daily Mail, March 3rd, 1995 newspaper clipping that describes this case in detail. And I want to move to the next slide that shows you my cardstock model of that, what I built. And I'm going to go to the next slide that shows you the bottom of what this thing looks like. Now, the backstory on this. 2 weeks later, when investigators got to him and did an interview with the primary eyewitness, he said that he had to basically drag or push his motorcycle 3 miles home because it didn't work anymore. And then one of the investigators that was conducting this interview, he was getting ready to have a smoke. And he pulled out a metal chrome Zippo lighter from his pocket. The second he pulled it out, it leapt out of his hand and went right to the gas tank. The entire motorcycle was magnetized.
Oh.
So it's CE1 and it's a CE2.
Yeah. Back engineering does that. They become magnets, literally. And they'll magnetize anything they come in contact with. ET does not do that at all. That's why they're on batteries. They deliberately don't magnetize anybody. Think about that one. Think that one through. Okay.
How do you know for sure that this is reverse engineered, Dolly? Is it the shape?
Because it's a pyramid. That's why.
They don't do that?
Built pyramids. No, they don't do pyramids.
Even if they wanted to make that appearance?
No. It's one of ours. Some smarty somewhere decided to do a pyramid.
It's an odd shape to pick because what are you going to do with that top little point part? I mean, it's just an odd shape.
You can't light gate with that. Trust me, it's not a happy, healthy thing to go through a light gate with. It's ours. It's back engineered. And their technology magnetizes everything. Start making distinctions, Michael, between that. ET doesn't magnetize anybody. They can EMP you. They can stop your stuff from working in seconds, but we're capable of EMPing you as well. Okay. And, but they don't come down and magnetize you. Do you know how many people they would kill? Any people who have heart problems, brain problems, all kinds of stuff. They will not do that. That's why they're on battery. They're not running magnets at that point. Think carefully about that one. Okay.
Well, this would fit what, we had George Simpson on with the Valentic case.
Yeah.
And there was a witness who said the plane was actually stuck to the side of a UFO, which was ostensibly a reverse engineered craft, not ET. I don't know. That's a whole other bag of worms there. But going on. The reunion case. I know this.
So this is an illustration of the famous Michelin Man case, July 31st, 1968, Reunion Island. This is in the Indian Ocean. Now, I want to mention that these Michelin Man, it sounds bizarre. It sounds crazy. It sounds otherworldly. But these beings have been reported all around the world. So this is something that we should look at, even though it sounds absolutely outlandish. In this case, the primary eyewitness, he kind of turned a corner and he saw what looked like a highly transparent middle section that was egg-shaped, 16 feet across. On the terminating right and left-hand side, there was an opaque bluish hue to the egg. Now, there was what looked like a opaque pedestal on the bottom and then a mirror image of the one on top. Now, as he got close to this craft, the one on the left noticed that they were being watched, and he alerted the Michelin Man on the right. and then there was this bright flash, and the beings disappeared, and the craft disappeared. Now, researchers got to the location later. They did find residual effects of radiation in the soil. So again, this is a CE1, it's a CE2, and it's a CE3 because it had physical effects and there were ETs involved in the case itself. So this is Flying Saucer Review, January, February 1969. They did a very good report on this case. And again, these beings have been seen literally all around the world.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. They are checking the planet out. In other words, they take readings, geometric readings of everything that goes on on our planet into the inside of it. They are watching the effects of our solar system on us right now, because for the last 100 years, we're under an assault from our own sun. Okay, and we're in an electromagnetic field current right now. And these guys, that's their job. They are doing that. They're a type of drones. And the Michelin guys are a type of AI that work in the drones. That's what they're doing.
There's a lot of Michelin Man cases. I was looking into it. There's probably 20 of them.
Their
And
job.
that's a whole, thematic
Yep.
episode on just Michelin Men. Because I've covered them several times on my YouTube channel.
Excellent. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, they've been seen all around. Now, here's another Michelin Man case. March 14th, 1976, Lyra, Spain. Both primary eyewitnesses had just completed their son's naval graduating academy celebration, and they're driving home. It's at night, and the wife sees this thing first. They kind of go over a hill. They're driving down a bend in the road. She looks off to the left, and she sees what could only be described as Sunday night at the Oscars is what it looked like.
Okay.
And it's got this, it was hovering about 3 feet off the ground. It had clenched fists that were down along its waist. So it had its arms down. It had kind of this ribbed exterior, dark gray, black in color, a featureless face, and they drove right by this thing. I mean, you talk about a scary situation here. I'm talking about 15 feet away. Now, as they passed it,
They'll come back.
I know. Michael, you buffered.
Yeah, I know this case actually. I believe they saw a UFO immediately prior to it.
where this
Right.
took place, here's the map. And this is from the Gray Barker collection in Clarksburg, West Virginia. I would not recommend staying there for any length of time. But if this is something that you want to do that is open to the public, you can look through the files, and that case is within this file. And I want to talk about what happened near the end of this case, because we have a statement by Don Vincente Correll. Here's what he said, quote, "It was not of this world, but of another." So this is Michelin Man case number 2.
Yeah, I remember this case, and I believe it affected their electrical system
Absolutely.
as
Yeah,
well.
you need them. Yeah.
Yes.
And they saw what they thought was a UFO immediately prior to this, but did not think anything of it until they saw this figure.
It burned out their lighting system, and they had to have another vehicle up front and behind to make it to the next city.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh my God.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is December 12th, 1977. This is in France. This is a young girl who had just finished her homework. She's looking out the kitchen window toward the backyard. And what she sees, if you look on the upper left of this, is an egg-shaped craft, 22 feet across. It was red in color. And then she says in the report, and they questioned her at great length. The whole family had very credible. A Michelin Man emerged from the top of this craft. Again, this is 22 feet across, egg-shaped craft. There were no visible means of propulsion. There were no wings. There were no ailerons. There were no doors. There were no hatch. This thing just emerged from the center of this thing. And you can see the rough drawing on the right. It's got these ribs on it. They said that it had a round lampshade as a helmet with a cutout.
Mm-hmm.
So that was there. And then the bottom drawing here are all the touchdown sites. This thing did this multiple times. It went from one part of the yard to the next at least 12 times and then flew away. The being reemerged in the craft and then flew away. And there's about a 2-page report that describes this. So this is essentially Michelin case number 3 now.
Very cool.
Yep. Okay, move on to the next one. Stuttgart, Arkansas, March 21st, 1950, 95 feet in diameter. This was seen by the pilot and co-pilot of a DC-3. And what they reported, this is at night, these beaming spotlights down from the bottom of the craft kind of go right past their windshield or their cockpit window. They got a good look at this thing. And I'm going to go to a couple of the statements that they made here. This is my AutoCAD drawing. So here's statement number one. We firmly believe that the flying saucer we saw over Arkansas Monday night was a secret experimental type aircraft, not a visitor from outer space. This is Captain Jack Adams, First Officer Anderson. And then they went on here, quote, I believe it was some kind of experimental type aircraft that has been kept a secret by the
Slight bump.
Michael, they don't like what you're saying.
But when you have the credible pilot and co-pilot reporting these things, this is something that we want to consider for absolute sure now.
Yeah.
We definitely want to consider that. This is the newspaper clipping here. Asheville Citizen, March 22nd, 1950. Saucer experimental aircraft, not spaceship, air pilots say. So this is one of these sightings that really can't be denied because of the credibility of the eyewitnesses. And this even predates the 1955 newspaper clipping. So you can see the technology appears to be going way back earlier than I think a lot of us realize what's going on here. They've had a lot of time to develop this technology. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one here. This is August 1962. This is in Lake Mobile, Minnesota. Primary eyewitness, believe it or not, was combing her daughter's hair on the cabin on top of the hill. They were looking down, and they see this 35-foot diameter dish-shaped craft land on the pier. She's combing her daughter's hair, and then she shuts off the light in the cabin.
Yeah.
And currently, whatever or whoever was inside shut off its light, and then this thing took off and disappeared. So it was almost as though there was a two-way communication here. So it's a CE2 case and a CE3 case. There was physical effects, and I'm going to go to the April Bulletin, October 1972, that describes this case in detail. So interesting humanoid case within 1972.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that case is there wasn't a sighting around, I think it was a week before or a week after, with the whole family. They all saw it, came right in front of their car, moved from one side to the other, which was clearly connected to this incident. So not a lot of people know about it's a two-part sighting is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there's always something more to these cases, if I find out. Korean conflict.
Wait, before you go on, we do need to take a quick station ID break.
No problem.
I just want to let you all know that you are watching The Light Gate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. Our guest tonight is Michael Schratt. We've been covering all kinds of really interesting UFO cases, like the Father Gill sighting, the Canary Islands sighting, Michelin Man sightings, the amazing JAL Japanese commercial airliner sighting from November 17, 1986 that actually brought me into this field. But we are streaming on numerous platforms, including 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans, also 105.3 FM, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and the United Paranormal Radio Network. We're also on YouTube and Roku and Facebook. So big thanks to our producers for getting us all we need to get this show on each week. Thank you all for joining us. What episode did I say this was? Number 53, I think, 56. I wrote it down. Now I can't find it. 56. So yeah, episode 56 of The Light Gate. All right, Michael, sorry to interrupt you, but
No
please continue.
No problem. Korean conflict, September 1950. Yalu River, seen by the crew of 3 U.S. Navy fighter bombers, 700 feet in diameter. This is back in 1950. 700 feet in diameter, massive craft. The craft resembled a coolie hat traveling at 1,200 miles an hour, confirmed by onboard radar. Now, this is a case that is within the Richard Haynes collection. So these are the craft that are being seen. Vietnam area. I've got another one in Cambodia, which is an absolutely bizarre CE3 case. And what these craft look like are what you're looking at this picture here. Very similar to these hats that are seen. And I'm going to do the next one here. Object stopped, backed up, then made a wobbling motion. At the precise moments, the plane's radar went out and the pilots lost communication with the aircraft carrier. So here again is this falling leaf wobbling phenomenon in this particular case.
Yeah. They're not at full power, they're on batteries. My father was out there in 1950, and he used to tell me about these guys too. He had interaction with one when he was over there. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know you had a case like that.
So, so those you think probably are ET craft?
Yeah. Yeah, they were. Do you remember the story I told you about them being in a box canyon and they had Chinese coming up behind them and they had civilian women and children with them and they had to go up a wall? Well, they got assisted. They could never explain how these guys got everybody out of this box canyon. My dad says they were assisted.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I do remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
Definitely want to highlight the research of Richard Haynes, advanced aerial devices reported during the Korean War. He also wrote about multiple other civilian airline cases, military pilot cases. He's probably got the most pilot report UFO sightings in the world. And when you take this as a body of evidence, it really can't be denied now. And you link that up with NICAP.org. And if you get bored on a rainy Sunday afternoon, you can go to NICAP.org, NICAP.org, click on the manila folder on the lower left that says Chronos, and they've got all of these sightings written by date, and you can read them to your heart's content, specifically the flap of 1947 and the flap of 1952, where a lot of these pilot reports are in those files. And anyone that's thinking logically, that has an open mind and willing to let the witnesses speak, cannot walk away from these cases thinking there's nothing to this phenomenon. I mean, it is very clear. We have an abundance of knowledge, an abundance of cases. We really don't need any more cases. We've already proved the point. What needs to happen now is we really need to get to the crash retrieval physical evidence in the form of the bodies, the debris, and the craft. And that needs to be put into the hands of the scientific community to move this field forward. That's where we're at right now. But it's important that we keep these historical cases alive.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
A lot of those crash retrieval cases, people have no idea.
There's way more than you know, literally way more. And they go all the way back to the late, by 39, 40, 41, 42. They have them and they don't talk about it.
Well, there's probably historical cases too, reaching back to the Middle Ages.
Oh, yes.
There's somewhere out there in the mountains is a crashed UFO that's been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
All right, next one. June 17th, 1952, Hasselbeck, Germany. All right, so the primary eyewitness was the mayor, and he was on a motorcycle with his niece, I believe it was.
I remember this.
And they're driving down the road. The motorcycle conks out, and they go to this field, and they see what look like two humanoid beings near this craft, kind of kneeling down. And they also had these camera devices attached to their waist, just like the other case that we had in Finland in 1970. So this is the second time we've heard this now. Once those two beings saw they were being watched by the two primary eyewitnesses, they climbed up on the ridge of this craft, and then they climbed up on this, what looked like a hockey puck. The hockey puck retracted down into the center of the craft and went right through the center to the bottom, lifting the whole thing off the ground, about 6 feet off the ground. And then there were these flaming sections that wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself. It took off and then departed. So I'm going to move on to the next one here so you can see kind of these magazine articles, good rendering of what this thing actually looks like. And then if I go to the next one, here is Oscar and Gabriel Linke.
Okay.
These were the two witnesses that saw this thing. Very good case. Very good case. Here's the drawing that was within the report here. And then if I go to the next drawing, now you can see basically these rings of tongues of flames that are wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself as this thing departed. Here is the sworn affidavit that talks about this. The CIA, they're involved in this. This is a Central Intelligence report. So they know about this case. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, which just goes to show if they're taking it seriously. I mean,
yes, they're absolutely
taking volumes.
They're absolutely taking it. So it says flying saucer takes off in red zone forest. The Times Tribune, July 2nd, 1952. So they are aware of it. There's no doubt about it.
Did they describe a sound with it?
What's that?
Did they describe a sound with it?
Just the flaming section where it departed.
In other words, it sounded like fire, or would they have known the difference between real
like
fire or electrical fire?
Coming out of the, you could call them circular openings on the bottom of it. I'm going to move to the next slide to give you an idea. That shows you what this thing looks like as it was just about taking off.
Yeah.
Interesting case. I've got a separate case from Bletham, New Zealand, of almost the identical tongues of flame that were counter-rotating on that particular craft. But, you know, the point I'm making here is that these beings, these humanoid-looking beings, they also had what looked like these large optical devices that were attached to their stomach area. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, next one, July 9th, 1995. This is in Grovos Mills, Missouri. There were 4 college students. Now, if you look way in the back of this illustration, you'll see a triangular shaped craft that is a part of this whole sighting. Now, some of these witnesses, at least one, was absolutely terrified at what they saw. It looks like kind of a thimble-shaped UFO with a notch cut out of the center. There were multicolored flashing lights on the upper and lower section, and then there were these shafts of light coming down through the bottom of the craft, and there were these balls, light-colored balls, going up and down through the shafts of light, and they were seeing all this. This is reported in this journal here, the Acton Advisor. They talk about this case in great detail. It's a 3-page report. Very interesting case, seen by 4 college students. Very interesting case.
Where was it exactly again?
This is in Missouri.
Missouri, okay.
The shapes of these UFOs drives me just a little bit nutty.
I know. It's crazy.
Because
not ET, it's not ET.
You're looking at every conceivable configuration here.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is not ET. Not ET.
Where would
not
you
ET.
sit in that?
They're messing with technology. How do I put this gently? You realize they're working on a false flag where they have technology now to make you believe anything. Okay. You will see.
I could not agree more.
Okay. And this is what that is. This is an act, and it's meant to scare people. Yep.
Well, it worked for
It's
that
not
one,
ET.
though.
Yeah, it's not ET. They don't do that. And they don't have triangle-shaped ET either. And if it was black mat triangle, you bloody well know, good and well and know it's us, not them. So
Wow.
ET doesn't do that either.
Next one, November 20th, 1956, Danielson, Connecticut. Primary eyewitness saw a half beach ball, 25 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
This thing looked like a vanity light flying in the sky. It looked like a half beach ball. Now, on the bottom of this, there were multicolored flashing lights that were connected to a Tesla coil with 3 donuts and then 2 black bands separating the donuts. I'm going to zoom in here, give you a little bit better view. Multicolored flashing lights. This thing was rotating at a very slow rate of speed, flying not too far from the top of the chimney. It almost hit the top of the chimney, but cleared it. And I'll zoom in a little bit closer here. You can see all these sockets with these Tesla coils. You've got these bulbs at the bottom. And I'm going to do one more blow up here. Now you can see these donuts. And then she specifically said that on the bottom of each one of these donuts, there was what looked like Aztec inscription or something that could be likened to a Peruvian rug border design. That's what it looked like. This Aztecing, this writing, these Peruvian rug border designs on the bottom of these donuts here. I'm going to go to her drawing just so that you know I'm not making this up. Here is her original drawing. Beautiful job. Fantastic job. You can see these bulb here. You can see the bottom of these donuts. She's got the black bands in there. She did a fantastic job. She passed away only a couple of years ago, but this is what she saw. It also came with a 3-page report that describes this. So when you have a detailed report, you've got a flight path, and you have a handwritten sketch and drawing, now you're looking at something real here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Did she say that? Did she see
Look at that.
did it disappear going up, or did it go across the sky and she lost it that way?
As it was clearing the top of the chimney, it kind of did a 45-degree angle, clear.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
It's intent. There was design intent. There was a knowledge, brain power behind this. This is not haphazard, for sure.
Yeah, someone is asking us to go full screen, but this is as big as you can get the images, right?
I know. Yeah.
If I go full screen, I probably can't advance properly.
Oh, all right.
Although I could go full screen if I go to home and then I go slideshow from current slide, I can get you here, which is bigger, but then I won't be able to advance.
Yeah.
So if I go to the next slide, you guys don't see the next slide, right?
Yeah.
No.
No.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll just keep moving forward here. Okay, so next one. Livonia, Georgia, June 29th, 1964. Uninvited guest by Richard Hall. That is the source of where I got this information. Now, primary eyewitness is driving down the road. He sees a top-shaped UFO with tongues of flame coming out of the bottom of it. It approached his vehicle and then departed, then came back again, was pacing his car. He was going about 55 miles an hour, right off the hood of the vehicle. And then as this thing departed and he stopped, the paint on the top of the hood had been deteriorated and melted away to a portion of degree. Now, if I go to the next one here, this is Greenville News, July 25th, 1964. Strange object was simply ball lightning. Declares. No. That's not the case. That's not the case.
They will say anything. I mean, there was a case where a UFO came down right over 3 women, about 30 feet up. One of the women actually urinated herself. Blue Book said it was Venus.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Man claims car buzzed by unknown object. Now, here's the interesting part about this. He said that the craft sounded like hissing cobras. It had this hissing noise. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what do we know about the lifters that we've seen? People that have these balsa triangles and they put tinfoil around it, and they have an ion-inducing rod that connects to the top of it. So you charge one part to to positive, the other part is grounded to negative, and then when you turn up the voltage, you get this hissing noise, almost identical.
Yeah, it's Harrier technology. Lavinia is a burb of Atlanta. It's on the outskirts of Atlanta, and there's a huge Air Force base out there. You realize that, right? A big one. It's one of the oldest Air Force bases in Georgia. As a matter of fact, during the war, they put tarps over, like webbing, and made it look like forest to the planes going over, so they wouldn't get bombed. And there's lots of technology going on there. Get it? So I'm wondering about this one.
Interesting.
Okay? That's Harrier technology, and this Georgia is part of that.
Okay, so let's see here. This is Wheelie, England. This is 1978, 90 feet across. Referenced East Essex Gazette, January 12th, 1979. That's where they reported it. Now, this came down in a farmer's field. He saw the craft land. He saw a ramp come out, and then a few minutes later, the ramp retracted back in, and the craft took off. But it's reported in this journal from January 12th, 1978, which I thought was interesting because that's not the only time we've had these mushroom-shaped UFOs. That comes up multiple times. Now, I want to jump forward to some of these Otto Binder cases, and I'm going to go from current slide so I maximize this. This is October 12th, 1796. On Columbus Day, over 170 years ago, Canadian observers reported an astonishing fleet of airships, UFOs, with portholes and visible occupants sailing over the Bay of Fundy from the Pacific Stars and Stripes. So this is 1796. These things are being reported.
Wow.
Predates
That's cool. Yeah.
all these cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's our colorized version, just to give you an idea what it looks like in color.
Yeah.
I'll just go really quickly to maximize this one, just so people can see this. And this is another Tom Bogan one based off of the Autobinder report. Let's move on to the next one here.
Yeah, not a lot of occupant cases that old. That's amazing.
Right, July 1868, villagers in Campeche, Chile were frightened by a giant armor-plated machine covered with steel scales whose twin searchlight eyes stabbed down brilliantly. So this is 1868 people are seeing these things.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Let me see if I can, from current slide, just give you a big idea. Now, another case I've got in Oaxaca, Mexico, which is a huge UFO hotbed, where for 6 hours in 1850s time frame, a large golden trumpet hovered over the town. Hundreds of people saw this thing. It was hovering there for like 6 hours. Very interesting case in Oaxaca, Mexico. Next one. Here's the full color rendering of the case we just talked about. And then we also should talk about these USOs. Richard Dolan is currently writing, which is going to be a 2-volume, 800-page total definitive book on USOs. I think it's going to be the best ever written. Probably will be published within the next couple of months here. But what we want to talk about here on USOs, unidentified submerged object, which is the forgotten facet of ufology. It's almost not even talked about. Thank goodness for Richard, who is going to do a really nice book on this. And I want to highlight this one point here. The government-sponsored 1969 University of Colorado $600,000 Condon report failed to mention any USO cases, which I think is bizarre, absolutely crazy. And then of the 1,517 foreign non-American cases categorized by Jacques Vallée, 50% were at sea. So here we spent $600,000 of our own tax dollars to getting to the bottom of this whole UFO thing. And then they didn't even look at 50% of the cases.
Yes, they did. And you want to know why? They don't talk to you about it. And I've told this to you before. I'm going to tell you again. The only reason UFOs go into the water is to cool off. They are so hot when they come in. They have to. They would burn towns down. They have to go to batteries. Water is the best place for them to go to do this. They will use any body of water. If it's deep enough for the craft, it will go in. The deeper the water, the better. And that is why. And that's why there are so many different types of USOs seen. The government does know they're there. They have seen them. They've had submarines damn near run into them. It is real. And that's what's going on, period.
Yeah. Didn't the Condon Committee draw all their cases solely from Project Blue Book as well?
Yes.
Some of them, yes. Yes, yeah. A large majority.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to understand that when they're under full power and they're outside our atmosphere, they're in space, they heat up to 27,000 degrees and better, okay? They can move so fast that the field that they're in is plasmic. It's so hot that they can burn the air up coming in. They can snuff out air as they come in. They have to go to the water, and they're already hitting battery power as they come into our system, into the stratosphere, okay? And by the time they hit the water, they're about 800 degrees cooler than that. And when they hit the water, you won't see smoke or fumes or anything because they're still in that protective field. But that plasma is being taken down in temp rapidly. And the governments don't want you to know that's exactly what they're doing. They lie. It's a big lie. And I want it to stop. And you can tell that to Mr. Dolan yourself. Tell him I said it. That's a fact. Okay. And I've tried to call him and talk to him about it, but he doesn't answer my calls. He should, because that's exactly what they're doing. There's no such thing as an underground base. You want to know why? Depth is pressurized. And when they're on batteries, they're subject to the same types of pressurization as we are. They can't go too deep. They can't stay down there for long. And their batteries don't last forever. No bases. They go down, they get cool, and they get the hell out. They'll sneak up on things, or they'll go halfway across the ocean to come out on a shoreline that they want to come up on and not be seen. But that's the only reason they use water, period.
Now, before we get too deep into the show, I've got about 15 or so questions I would love to be able to ask from chat. So, what do you think?
Okay. I think we can do a couple more of these USO cases. Now, I want to highlight the book Invisible Residents by Ivan T. Sanderson.
Okay.
It is an absolute must read. If you have a family member, if you have a friend, if you have a coworker that is sitting on the fence that just can't decide which way to go on this phenomenon, I invite you to go ahead and get this to them. As it's not a very expensive book at all. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Invisible Residents by Ivan T. Sanderson. And it is literally documented cases by the U.S. Navy of these USOs that have been tracked. There's been Taiwanese fishing trawlers that got USOs caught in their nets, and they brought those back onto the decks of the ships. Other USO reports, I mean, credible, documented. It's got references. You cannot walk away from reading that book thinking there's nothing to this phenomena. I mean, it is that critical to understand the whole USO phenomenon. Now, I want one case within that book. This is the USS Wasp off the coast of Puerto Rico. This is 1963. They were doing a training exercise. There were 5 naval ships involved in the exercise and 2 submarines, and they were tracking a USO going over 150 knots at a depth of 27,000 feet back in 1963, confirmed by the U.S. Navy. Very good case. It's detailed in the book.
Okay. I want to ask you a question because now I'm on it. Okay, 27,000 feet. What part of the ocean were they in?
Off Puerto Rico, 1963.
Puerto Rico. In the triangle? Because that's the deepest water in the triangle.
Well, certainly deeper than the Titanic, that's for sure.
Okay, 27,000 feet. How long did they track it?
For 3 days.
3 days.
Wow.
Going 150 knots back in 63.
Right. In one straight line, or did it do circles? I mean, what's the deal?
Don't know.
You don't know.
But I mean, it's way below we could go. We didn't have a submarine that could go to that depth. Certainly not at that speed.
Well, when they're fully charged, they can. They can because they're in the field. In other words, they can take any pressure in fully charged field. So they didn't give you any details about what they were seeing, the fact that it was hot, the fact, how did they see it? Was it on radar? This would I would be really, really interested in. They need to cough that information up.
It's a very good case. Yeah, it's in the book. It's highlighted in the book. Now, Preston, you had talked about this case in your files, June 14th, 1992, Catalina Island. So I want to give credit to you for this case where these craft were seen just below the surface by multiple witnesses. This is back in 1992, Catalina Island. And then they departed off at kind of a medium rate of speed, but confirmed by multiple witnesses.
Yeah, lots of USOs in this area in particular.
Yes. Absolutely. Another one, February 7th, 1989, Catalina Island, where something similar to this basically emerged, sat on the top of the waves for 60 seconds, and then off of its back, it launched 6 dish-shaped craft and then submerged about 1 minute later. That was seen by multiple eyewitnesses. Also, August 4th, 1967, Venezuela, witness observed this turquoise bulbous beach ball come out of the water, and then it had a series of triangles wrapped around the outer circumference that were rotating, and then it submerged back down again. So that's another USO case. And then I want to talk about this case, USS FDR, that also had an interesting UFO case back in 1958, late 1958. But in this one, this is 1963, west of Italy. The initial contact was 600 miles from the ship at 80,000 feet altitude, so way out there. Later on, it approached the ship at a range of 10 miles at 5,000 feet high. That's where they scrambled 2 F-4s, could not match this craft, and then it made these absolutely incredible turns going at 4,000 miles an hour. This is back in 1963. So very interesting case there. I want to highlight again Ivan T. Sanders' Residents, Invisible Residents by Ivan T. Sanders. Absolutely incredible book. Has all these different USO cases. I think we can do a couple more of auto binder reports. April 19th, 1959, near Japan. Aboard a fishing boat, the amazed crew spotted two saucers diving into the ocean at terrific speeds, yet no wreckage was ever found, as if the UFOs had deliberately submerged for an underwater trip. So bottom line is, whatever these UFOs are, or USOs are, in some cases, they are tricksters because they can materialize and dematerialize at will. They can go from one medium to the other medium, no
Right.
problem at all. And they can fly into the side of mountains with no impact.
Correct. That's because they're interdimensional. When I say they're at full power, they're no longer totally in the third dimension. They're already out into the fourth, and they can go through anything. And that's why water's not affected when they go through it. That's why you only see the heat drop. I want to make a statement here, okay? Because you can't mess with me. I'm from Florida. I know about Puerto Rico. All right. I was a swimmer, diver, you name it. 27,000 feet is just over 83,000 meters. 8,300 meters. That's the very bottom of that trench. It's in the triangle. It's not as long as you know it is, and it doesn't go on for weeks. So they were not at that depth for that amount of time. Okay. So that's problem number one that I have with the story. The second problem I have with the story is there are a lot of military exposés or leaks that are absolutely BS poppycock, meant to mess with you. And I would consider that one of them, because there's no way they tracked a craft for over a week, even with that many boats, for that length of time at that depth. It did not happen. Okay. The water is very shallow other than those trenches. And you can't go, it wouldn't take you 5 minutes at 150 knots to get it out of that trench. It would take you minutes to get out of that trench and come up. So BS, no. I don't believe it. Not for a minute.
I can only go by the report from the U.S. Navy.
Yeah, I know. And the U.S. Navy is not in the habit of telling 100% of the time, 100% of the truth. Like I said, they manipulate information to mess with people and to make you think things that are not true. And that's one of them. I'm very passionate about this. You go look it up. How deep is that trench? How deep is the water around it? And how long would it take at 150 knots to come out of that trench? They weren't circling that trench for a week. There's no way. So, nope. Okay.
So here's our full color rendering of what that case looked like. Let's move on to the next one. So this is June 3rd, 1961, Italy. Gokamo Bara and his companions felt waves rocking their motorboat, then saw a huge UFO rise up out of the sea and sail off through the sky as if equally at home in the ocean or in the air. That's exactly what we just talked about.
Yeah.
So they have no problem going from one medium to the next. This is our full color rendering of what that case looked like. And then I'll do this one here. This is 1882 from current slide. Near Ascension Isle, a British steamer came upon a gigantic UFO floating in the ocean at least 800 feet long, or nearly as big as the Queen Elizabeth, which slowly sank beneath the waves and vanished from sight. Back in 1882, this is being reported. Here's our full color rendering here. And then we'll go to this one. This is July 30th, 1909. Waikai Valley, New Zealand. Men aboard a dredger reported a boat-shaped UFO that circled all around with two human-like figures visible inside. Credit Tony Brunt. So here's our full color rendering of what this thing looked like. And this is being reported in 1909. This is literally 6 years after the Wright brothers on December 17th, 1903.
Yep.
This is being reported. We'll do two more of these. This is November 13th, 1833. A crowd on both the American and Canadian side saw a peculiar square-shaped UFO hover over Niagara Falls for an hour, after which it sped away toward the ocean. So you've got this cube hovering over Niagara Falls in 1833. It's being reported. I'm going to move to the next slides, and I'm going to go to current slide, and I'm going to make this larger so people can get a good look at what this thing looked like. So who is building these in 1833, long before the Wright brothers? Something else going on here.
Right.
Yep. All right. This is May 1967. Mr. X, name withheld by request, of Anderson, South Carolina, was fishing on Hartwell Lake and saw an octagonal UFO apparently pumping up water through a metal tube which Mr. X was near enough to cast and strike the object, but nobody came out, and it soon shot away into the sky. This is our full color rendering of what that looked like. So here's another one of these water pumper UFOs back in 1960.
It was a freshwater lake.
Freshwater lake.
Yeah. Yeah, they're taking water for to share for batteries and stuff. Yep. Okay.
Wow.
Preston, you had some things you wanted to go over? Questions or something?
Yeah, well, I was hoping we could pull up some questions from chat.
Yeah, sure.
Because, we love to interact with chat. Okay.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Sure, you can for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing for right now. And
here, I can pull it out. So here,
yeah.
Let me just pull it out.
Good.
Okay. Now, let's answer some questions because this is always fun, and we still have a good 20 minutes.
Okay.
And Fun Talks TV is asking, question for Dolly: have you ever encountered the tentacles on any type of craft? Is this a military thing?
No. Different craft have different spatial needs, okay? And the smaller crafts have the shorter, smaller, thinner tentacle things with balls on the end. And you're looking for the balls on the end. It's the most important thing you're looking for on them. And then the bigger the craft, they'll have the big round lumps, like 3 of them on the bottom. And then the really bigger craft, you'll see a whole section come down underneath the craft. And that's a battery, a big battery. They can take water on. It just depends on what that particular craft was designed to do. And they have millions of jobs that they follow here because they have different things that they're here for. It isn't just to come and check us out. They watch our planet. They watch our solar system. They watch every other planet in our solar system. They watch the sun. They watch what's happening energy-wise around us, before us and after us in our galaxy. And so they all have different jobs. And you're going to see different craft. And now a lot of them, if it's really weird looking, you have to ask yourself, is it really that shape, or is it just arraying that way so that's what you see? They like to do that.
That brings us to the next question from Fun Talks TV. When they show things under the craft, does the craft do it, or do the ETs do it, or is this a mutual decision?
The craft are embodied by fifth dimensional.
So is he the one who's he's the one who makes the decision?
Yeah. Yes. And it is up to him, wholly up to him. He is in absolute contact with everything that's up there. When they're up there, they've already made up their mind about what's going on and how it's going to happen. And they make decisions. Sometimes they make them in moments because they run into situations down here that they have to alter a little bit of how they're being viewed, because it's not just us that are seeing them, it's the governments, and the governments like to cause trouble. And they are more and more, probably since the 1960s, they're more and more defiant with them, and they send aircraft up to, get as much information from them as they can while they're in the air. They're also wary of our craft. Our people are wary of them because they know they have to train their pilots to be careful not to get in line of sight of their emitters, because a craft can be knocked out of the air by them inadvertently. They have to be very careful how they fly around. So, yeah.
All right. Sorry, Michael, a lot of these questions are more aimed
That's okay. That's okay. All right.
But Fun Talks has got a lot of questions. Question for Dolly again. Can a craft display anything it wants, like a TV?
Like a cuttlefish. They can make you think that they're a cloud in the sky. They'll bring, like, how people paint themselves to move into walls, and they just sort of disappear. Yeah. Okay. They can do that. And from whatever your perspective is, they know, and they just, image themselves into the picture so you can't see them. Sometimes they go full interdimensional and you don't see them. They got a couple of ways of disappearing. So, yeah.
All right. This cat is driving me crazy. Okay. Hold on a second. This next question is from Fun Talks TV. Okay. Question for Preston. Do you think you can persuade an ET to get in touch with another person?
No.
Well, I will tell you, there was a case of a lady who was healed of cancer, Helena Charbonneau, where the ETs told her that they got a request from a friend. It turned out her friend was a contactee.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that can happen. Me personally, I don't think I could do it. I could give it a try if I ever were in contact with ET. I think to a limited extent, it's possible. But ultimately, I think each person, I don't know. I really couldn't answer that question. I think it's possible.
Yeah. Michael, I have a question for you. Okay. I'm going to usurp everybody for a minute. You have tons of information that you don't talk about. Okay.
Really?
Yes.
You must know something I don't.
I don't know. I think I do.
Okay.
In other words, it's not good to lay your hands out completely. You're showing everything that you can get on them, but there are details. I want you to talk about a detail that you've talked to me about, because I want people to understand what's going on with this. How did the back engineers get into craft, and how did they figure it out?
Okay, well, from the research in the UFO crash retrieval files from Leonard Stringfield, it appears that there were originally 3 methods that were used to attempt to get in. Now, a lot of these were failed attempts.
Right.
Number 1, there was a diamond tip drill bit that was used back in 1946 that they tried. That failed multiple times. So that's number 1, diamond tip drill bits. Number 2, they use acetylene torches. And when that failed, they brought in a laser device, and that failed as well. Now, I believe we've got one reference where they were able to get into this craft by using a large vat of liquid nitrogen, liquid nitrogen into a vat of this. They cold shocked it, and then they got inside. So, yeah, that's how they got it. It's not easy to get in these things. So.
No, that's because they are run and alive. They're indwelt. They're actually alive, and they have to kill it to get in. Literally have to dull its senses to let you in. That's what they do. They freeze it. It's like if you were to stick your hand in a vat of that, you lose that, right? And they could ostensibly get into your body system that way through your arm. And that's exactly what they were doing. Okay. I want to make sure that people knew this went on, and that's how they figured it out. Yeah.
All right. Here's a question from Chris Teen. Michael, what got you into this topic? Have you had a personal experience?
I've been interested in aviation from day one. It's been a part of my life from the very beginning. My dad used to take me to an old air museum in Mundelein, Illinois, where they had these World War II wrecks kind of sitting out in the field. They were still in pretty good condition, but the paint was chipped. It was oxidized skin. The windshields were cracked. The flight controls, they were missing fabric, so you could see the skeleton ribs and everything on the ailerons, and the rudder was exposed, and there was weeds growing up through the wheel wells, and it just had this ghostly appearance and aura about it that really got me involved in aviation. And from that point, I just started connecting the dots, interviewing people who worked on classified programs, secret aircraft, things that go bump in the night, trying to put this whole story together, because what we're looking at within the black aircraft research and within UFO research, because these things converge. They're very close together. They converge. What we have is a 400-piece puzzle, as Bill Scott had talked about before, Rocky Mountain editor of Aviation Week Space Technology. We've got a mosaic. We've got a story to tell. We've got some of the pieces on the corner. We've got some of the pieces on the bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the pieces on the left. We're starting to put some of the interior central pieces in, but we don't have the grand picture just yet. And that's why all of these cases are important to put together, because, as you know, the United States Navy, the United States Pentagon, they want to take anything prior to 2004 and make it disappear. They only want to take anything from 2004 to current and consider that. But we won't let them get away with it, because we've got the crash retrieval cases. We've got all the historical UFO cases from NICAP, and we were not going to let those cases disappear.
Thank you. It's important. It's very important.
Yes.
They have been back. They have technology that you're not even aware that they have. And the only things that they don't have, and it's interesting to me, and they're never going to in this lifetime. Trust me, they don't. You don't have the technology to build the technology that they use. Okay, they're approximating it. They're very good. It's like building an android. That's very. You see the robots that they have, but instantly when you look at them, it's not real. I mean, you don't have to be a dummy. You can see that's not real. Okay, and that's what they're trying to get to. That's why all the neurological stuff that they've developed, all the Musk, he doesn't tell the whole truth about his technology either. Okay, there's guys in France, there's guys in Spain, there's guys in Sweden. I mean, they're all over the world working like maniacs to try to approximate how these craft operate. And one of them is central command. In other words, the brain of this machine is really an entity that's indwelling it. The craft actually becomes its body, functioning body. And they know this. They won't tell you the truth about that. They're still trying to figure out how to get a human mind into one of them. That's one of their big things. And I don't want anybody to ever forget that. That's why we have so many satellites. That's why we have neural nets and quantum computing and AI and all of this. They're trying to develop a craft that becomes that. And they're going to use humans to do it too. And I wish that humanity needs to open its eyes and understand that this is what we're looking at. This is what we're funding. This is what we all work toward that we don't know it's happening. And we're being trampled while this is occurring. And it's not just that. We have an agenda by them because they're running out of time. And we don't know what most people don't. I'm trying to bring that forth as well. And it's maddening. So I love what you're doing, You need to be on TV. Ancient Aliens needs to pick you up. I'm not kidding. They need to just tell the bloody truth and quit farting around with this and just zero in on the truth and the real technology that's occurring.
Yeah, we need the Michael Schratt show. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Okay. More questions. I'm hoping we can get to these pretty quickly because we are beginning to run out of time. Here is a question regarding human mutilations, a disturbing aspect of the phenomena rarely discussed or mentioned. Can you share your knowledge of any cases regarding this and the motives behind it? I will real briefly. In my own assessment, I looked into it. I was horrified. I think this is government, psyops, my labs, fear tactics, not ETs doing it, period. That's my assessment. But that's what I believe is going on here. I don't think ET is doing that. All right. I don't know if any of you want to jump in.
Michael, do you know if anybody's cracked open a craft and found humans mutilated on tables?
I've got a case from Cambodia.
Okay.
I can't, it's part of the historical record.
What year?
Again, it's part of the Leonard Stringfield collection where quote unquote ETs were collecting human body parts, putting them in plastic bins. This is during Vietnam, and then going into the craft that looked like a 50-foot diameter beach ball, and then it took off. I can't prove they were ETs or aliens. It could be something man-made to put forth a certain threat agenda. I wouldn't put this past him, and I concur with Preston that it's not ETs doing that. There's something else going on here, a much more sinister, dark aspect of this.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is from Blind Psychonaut. Why do you think do most craft emulate different colors when interacting with our atmosphere? Kind of like the aurora borealis.
It depends on what's in the field when they come in. In other words, our atmosphere is full of chemicals, okay? And the aurora borealis change color because of the different elements that are in the air, and they interact with them, okay? And it's the same thing with craft. If they're coming in hot, they're going to glow really, really orange if they're coming in on top of salt water and iron, okay, in the atmosphere, a lot of carbon, and they bloom orange, big orange. It just depends on where they're at and how hot they are and what part of the atmosphere they're in that they glow a certain color. Yep.
All right. Got more questions.
Okay.
Got, let's see, 15 more or so. This question is for Michael. You're very deep into sightings, landings, and crashes, but have you ever dug into the consciousness psychic aspect of contact? This is from Fun Talks. Can you tell us your thoughts on that aspect?
I have to be honest, I really haven't looked too much into the conscious end of this. Now, I don't deny that that's a major part of it, but I try to focus in on the nuts and bolts, hardware, defense contractor end of this. That's really been my focus of interest.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that, though, because it's an important aspect that needs more attention.
Nobody else is doing it. It's fantastic. Okay.
I don't know if I certainly can't answer this question from Chris Teen. Where are the Michelin Men from? Are they ETs or man-made? You said they were ETs, didn't you?
Yeah, they're AI. They're specifically made to do specific things. They're not like the little AI grays. These are more geo. They do more things where they're checking, our Earth. They're doing sampling. They're doing energy readings. They're nuts and bolts, and they're big enough to lift heavy things or walk long ways like that one was walking. They're very, very physical, and they're protected by the way they're configured. And they're geophysical scientists for them. They relay back information to ET about the planet.
All right. Here is.
They also watch cities. I hate to tell you this, but they keep a really big eye on cities. Just saying. Okay, go ahead.
Surprising me. JTAD is asking, do we do lives every week? This is the first time I found it. I'll be tuning in for the rest if you are. Yeah, every Monday night we do lives. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes we do live Q&As, especially if the guest drops out at the last minute. So thanks for not doing that, Michael. You're always reliable.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe you can talk about this, Michael, because this is an interesting aspect, which we haven't heard a lot about. From Mr. MH, can you share your knowledge on UFO cases regarding miniature UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
Are there miniature humanoids?
Okay, so I've got a case within the Stringfield collection prior to 1958, I believe 1948, where a UFO came down. This is in Sierra Madre, Mexico, and there was a highway construction engineer who asked to be brought on to the retrieval team by the United States military. And when they got to the craft, there was a C-119 flying boxcar near it. So absolutely American military involved in this. And this construction engineer was asked by our military to assist in the retrieval operation. Now, getting to the story here and the question, I wouldn't really call this miniature, but we know that the diameter of the craft itself cannot be any more than 9 feet in diameter, because the interior wall of the clamshell doors of the C-119 flying boxcar are right around 9 feet 10. So we have to have 5 inches in clearance on either side. By default, it's a mathematical certainty that the craft can't be any more than 9 feet in diameter. So that we know. Now, he also mentioned in the report that there were 3 ET bodies recovered. They were very small stature to fit in a 9-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. You have to be small. He said that when he touched their skin, which was burnt, they were all deceased, the skin came off on his fingers. They were tiny little good-looking men, he said. And that was the end of the report. So in this case, these beings were very small. That's the closest I have to.
Yeah, I know there's some really interesting cases from Malaysia where tiny UFOs landed next to a school and little itty bitty beings came out. I don't know how much credence to place on some of these cases, but I did do a whole episode, because they can shrink things down.
Yeah, they can. There are ETs that are that small naturally. We have to stop thinking that our size is normal. It's not, and there's lots of variations in this, and it's a big universe, And little teeny weeny ETs. The AIs are very small. They're about 3 feet tall. Some of them are a little bit taller, but not by much, maybe inches. And they're very skinny. They don't look like they should be able to stand up or hold their heads up, but they do. And when they're burnt, it's like roasting a roast for hours and hours and hours. 15 minutes of heat on them will roast them through, And so I'm not surprised they came off.
Well, we're down to our last 5 minutes or so here.
Okay.
So here is, I think we have time for this question from Kason Lee LK. The wobbling effect. Bob Lazar claims the wobbling happens because in near-Earth travel, UFOs do propulsion by creating space-time wells around the craft to move. Any thoughts on that?
No. They use.
I like how definitive you are. There's no question.
No, electromagnetic fields can magnetically be charged against whatever charge is underneath them. In other words, if you're positively charged and you're riding on top of a negative charge, it's like being on a boat on the water. You bob and you weave and you da 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 da. So they're riding on waves of electromagnetism, and it's electric. That's how that happens. And we have the ability to approximate that. They can do it. That's some of the back engineered technology that they figured out. But it's not stable. They crash their stuff all the time because they don't have control over it like the craft that's intelligent does. So yeah, it's a really good example of it's like being on the water. They're riding electromagnetic energy by repelling or attracting the energy of the earth.
All right. Well, we got through most of the questions. We really don't have time for any more, but we do have another minute, Michael, for you to give any last words. We definitely want to have you back. You're amazing. You've got a lot more to share.
That's very kind. So only thing to share is a YouTube channel called Michael Schratt. And that's, maybe 2 times a week I post things on there. They're all illustrated. They all have references, so you can check it out. I give you the newspaper clipping, the date, the time, location, so that you can verify this on their own. Of course, Preston, you mentioned the book in the beginning. It's called Dark Files, A Pictorial History of Lost, Forgotten, and Obscure UFO Encounters. That's available on Amazon. I'm currently in the process of writing a new book. It's going to have crash retrievals on it. It's going to have witness cases on it. It's going to have historical cases on it. It's going to have man-made UFOs on it. So that's kind of in the works right now. I've got 2 lectures coming up at Contact in the Desert. One is an update on UFO crash retrievals, and then the other one is Inside the Black World. I'm going to be talking about black programs. And then within that presentation, I've got a little mini segment that I call The Price is Wrong, Fraud, Waste, and Abuse in Government Spending. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have on the big screen a picture of a washer, and I'm going to say how much you pay for it at Home Depot. And then I'm going to ask the audience how much we all paid for it at the DOD and the Pentagon. So what's the actual Pentagon price? And for the people that get to the closest, I'm going to hand out Starbucks gift cards.
That's cool.
Yep, I'm going to do washers. I'm going to do toolboxes. I'm going to do toilet seat covers. I'm going to do monkey wrenches. I'm going to do Allen wrenches. I'm going to go through the whole list. And then whoever gets closest, I'm just going to start handing out Starbucks gift cards.
Fantastic. Oh, we're going to, that's cool. Can we talk you into coming on like once a month or once every other month? Seriously.
Well, I don't know, Dolly. You steal the show, so I don't know. Maybe
I don't want to do that.
I don't know.
I'm doing that. I'm just very verbal. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very verbal. I can't help myself.
That's okay. It's all good. We're a family. We're all in this crusade together. Yes. Ultimately, this is not about money. Preston, no. I know you would do this if you got paid $0.
That's exactly right. He does most of the time. Yeah, we have a very good audience here. They love us, and they don't realize this. They keep us in this show because it costs money to be on this show for us. They don't pay us; we pay them. So that's really cool. And he doesn't. You're right. I do this. I do it for free. Period.
We definitely want you back. Maybe not every month, Dolly, but
I see the passion. Okay. I see the fire in your eyes, and I know you won't let that fire burn out. I know it.
No, not at all. I'm here to stay. I grounded myself to do this. I mean, I literally grounded. When they bugged out, I stayed behind, and I figured, well, I'm in it. My dad knew I was going to do it, and my family knew I was going to do it, and I can't help myself. It's ridiculous because I didn't know what was going on in the world. I totally kept myself out of it. I was working with them, and I had a life here, but it was very, blinders. And when I started looking around, I thought, oh my God, the things that I hear are unbelievably bad that the governments have done and that they lie. I mean, the lies out there are unbelievable. They have agents who lie on purpose for things. And the more I heard, the worse it got. And then I started looking for somebody to talk to. And I don't know if you know this or not, but ET sent me to Preston. They know who he is. And they said, this is the guy you want to talk to. And when I looked him up, I watched his very first video that I could ever find. It was on healings. And I knew for the second I listened to it, like, whoop, there it is. He tells the truth. He tells what he's learned. He doesn't make big comments on it. He just tells the facts. And that's what this is all about, telling the truth, period. If you learn it, tell it.
We're going over, Dolly.
Oh, all right. What time is it? Okay, we still got 6 minutes, but I got to close down on our producer, have a cow. Michael, thank you very much. Stay on because we're going to book the next date. I want to show you Colada. And we love you guys. Thank you so much. You are the best audience ever, ever. We couldn't have better than y'all. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We have been on Roku. We have been on YouTube and Facebook. We have many people watching around the world, and we are so thankful that you are watching our show. Thank you very much. We love you.
Thank you for this too, you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Okay.